Hello, here are some basic tips and tricks for Adobe Illustrator. First off, let's just say that you start out with a basic document of just one page only, the standard portrait sized document, and I'm going to just click on that quickie start button there. Also, if you want to follow along with me, I'm using the workspace here, Window, Workspace. I'm using Essentials, so it might be easier to follow along with me if you set your workspace to Essentials. If you need to set up multiple artboards in one document, then first click on your selection tool over in the upper left in the toolbar. And then you can look over in the Properties panel over here on the right. And down a ways is Document, that section there. And you can see it says Artboard, and there's just one. So you can click on Edit Artboards. And then moving up, it's shifted up a bit here for the artboards. Then let's say that I want a total of 3. So I can just click the plus sign and click it again. So now if I zoom out, you'll see I've got 3 of them. And let's say that I'm planning to create a trilogy of book covers. And I'm probably going to have some of the images, extend beyond the boundaries of each of these image areas here, each of these artboards. Then I can just simply, stretch them out a little bit so that I allow for, that freedom and flexibility between the artboards. And if you want, you can rename the artboards simply by looking over here in the Properties panel. You can edit the artboard names. And then once you do click away, say I go back to my selection tool and I click away, then I can't really edit the artboards anymore. I'd have to go back in over here to the Properties panel and click on Edit Artboards again. So just remember that if you want to move your artboards around or make any kind of modifications to them in that way, that you have to go back and click on that Edit Artboards button. When you're working on your designs, if you need to see what each one would look like, without showing any overlapped material off of the edge of the artboard, here, let me just go ahead and create something. Well, that white isn't going to help, is it? Let me change the color of that. Okay, so let's say that that's, I don't know, going to be some cloud in the sky, and I wanted to overlap the boundaries here of the artboard, but I'd like to have a quickie view of what that's going to look like in the end. Then I just go up to View and Trim View. Okay, so then I can see what that would look like, and then I can just go back and, take that back off. The next thing I'd like to run through is working with symbols just a little bit here. So first off, I'm going to open the Symbols panel. I'll go to Window and Symbols. So I've got that ready. The next thing I'm going to do is create a very, very basic design of something. So let's just say that you want to create something that you plan to use multiple times, but you might vary the size and shape of it a little bit. Let me just create that and grab a second color. And then I'm going to make another circle here with the oval tool. And I'll put them together, and then I'll drag and select both of them. Go over to the symbols and to the plus sign. So for this first part of the exercise, just use these settings. Choose Graphic and choose Static. And then click OK. All right, so here's the symbol, which is reusable, from the symbol library there. And I can, kind of squash and stretch or rotate one of them if I want to. However, with the static symbol, if I wanted to edit anything, and let me go to the direct select tool here And, oh, actually I need to go back to the selection tool, excuse me. And then it's going to give me the warning that everything's going to be affected by this change. So I click OK, close that warning, and then I'm going to, select that one piece. And I'll just change the color. And then I'm going to go back using the navigation in the upper left. I'll exit the symbol editing mode. So they all changed. And in fact, it changed in my little library here. Okay. So that's the static symbol option. That's what happens with those settings. So now let's go do another run through, and I'm going to grab my, maybe I'll change it to a rectangle. So this time, here, let me create a shape, and then I'll, grab a different color, and I'll, kind of do something similar here. Make that. So then let me select both of those and go back up and create a symbol. And this time, let me do test 2. And this time we'll choose dynamic, and I do want to just change that to graphic though. So choosing dynamic and click OK. So now I've got that symbol that I could drag over from my symbol library, and I can modify the proportions of it or rotate it, whatever I want to do there. If I use now the direct selection tool from the toolbar there and click on one of the elements and then change something, like do that. Now you can see that it only changed this one. Let me go back to my regular selection tool. So now it only changed the one that I messed with, and it did not affect the one in the symbols library there. So you've got dynamic versus static as far as how you might want to control your saved symbol. So here's another tool that you could potentially get very creative with. The blend tool will blend shapes together. So you can do that with shape and color. And let me just put a rectangle in, and then, I have my stroke turned off for this little exercise. I didn't want the stroke line to actually be in the way. Click OK there with that, and I'll use the star next. And finally, one more color here, maybe red, and the ellipse. Okay, so let me move these around a little bit, and then I'm going to grab the the blend tool right here, and I will click and drag down to the next object, and click across and drag down to the next object. So now we have, it looks pretty funny right now, but if you double click into individual shapes within that, you can move them individually, or you can resize them individually. Okay. And you can change the color. So let's say I'm going to change this color here right now. Okay, so you see what's doing? It blended that color across and down to the red one and over to that purpley blue one. Okay, so you can do that as well when you're editing one of the shapes by itself. And the other thing you can do too is, boy, I really have that star distorted. The other thing you can do, here I gotta click away and click back in. I'm just trying to select the one. So on the opacity for the star, I'm down here in the properties panel, and I'm going to change the opacity, and you can see then, it changes the opacity across. The other thing you can do is, let me get back over to the main layer and go to Object and Blend Options. So I could change spacing to specific steps. I could change this to, say, 8 steps and click OK. So now it's stepped. All right. And you can do that also with, I'll go back to blend and blend options. And you've got distance. So you could increase that. Let's say I do 100 point. I don't know. Click OK. Okay, so it's 100 point distance to the blended objects there. So that could get pretty interesting depending on what you blend. And finally, something for blending that you might find even more useful is the freeform gradient. And you may have seen this before, but I'm going to go ahead and just kind of run through this again. Let me just go ahead and create a shape here. And then I'll get to the gradient tool. And actually, sometimes it's easier to just open that gradient window here. So let me just open that window and put this over to the side. And I'm going to grab the freeform gradient right here. And then let me click in this swatch. And do I have my object activated here? Yeah. There we go. So now I've got, now I have the freeform gradient activated. And it starts out with the points, okay, generally. I know I had mine online. But it starts out with the points, and you can add or subtract as many points as you want, and you can move them around, and you can expand the individual points. And when you select one, of course, you can go to your swatches and you can change the color of the one that you selected, right? So you can do that. Or you could go, I'm just getting a few of these out of my way, and I am going to get the rest of them out of my way in a minute here. But you could use the line for the freeform gradient, which can also be really interesting in terms of what, whatever you might want to use a gradient for. And now I actually want to, let me get back, got to go back into Edit Gradient, this button right here. And I just want to delete those points. I don't want too much going on here in the gradient. So, and right now, all of these points on my line gradient are, actually they're just white. Okay, so I would need to, my color palette is actually over on my other screen here. So yeah, so you can go in and you can just modify, each range, each area there, and and then just work with that. Let me click away from there, and you can move and add points along that line path. Okay, so this could be something useful for any number of things. You might want to put multiple gradient colors into a sky background, or perhaps an object like, I don't know, maybe a planet. So anything's possible. But those are the options for the freeform gradient that are definitely worth checking out. And it does help to just open the gradient panel, because then you're just it's right there next to what you're working on. So that's about it for a few basic tips and tricks in working with Illustrator. Perhaps you'll find one or more of these useful as you're working on your projects.